There's our fender. Ew. Welcome to Robert's British Cars. This is part 13 of the restoration of the 1964 MGB. This is the 1964 MGB. This car was sitting in the woods for more than 20 years, and we're going to try to bring it back. In our last episode, we did a walk around the car, examining the body and seeing how the rust was. And we noticed that the bottoms of the fenders in the front here were pretty much the worst part of the car. So in this part, we're going to take the fenders off the car. Now, I looked around and I came up with about 21 bolts that hold the fenders on. They're pretty easy to get to and pretty straightforward on how to get them off, except for the 3 down here. They're at the bottom of the fender and they pick up a lot of moisture and road dirt, and they're pretty rusty, so we're probably going to have to cut them off. Let's take a look. There's 3 little bolts like this that hold on the bottom of the fender. I got the middle one out. I broke the 2 end ones off, but at least the fender is loose. There are 7 bolts that are accessed from inside the car that hold on the fender. 4 of them are here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'll move my light. 3 of them would be under the dashboard. And there's 1 there, 1 here, and 1 here. So that's a total of 7 bolts that are inside the car that you're going to have to take off to remove the fender. The ones up under the dashboard, which are really easy to get to when there's no dashboard, are 1/2 inch. Here's 2 right here. Here is number 3. Let's see if this is going to work. Oh, I'll be a dirty name. So just in case you're keeping score, here's the 3 1/2 inch bolts that were up on the top under the dashboard. And here's the 4 7/16 bolts that were in a vertical line. As you can see, we've got some 7/16 bolts here where the fender attaches to the valance. I think I'm just going to take off the whole valance. There's the bolts, and there's the valance. The rest of the bolts look pretty easy. They're across the top of the fender here, and they are 1/2 inch. One thing to note, these bolts here, they have a double purpose. They hold on the little support that goes to the radiator, okay? And some of these other bolts are a little bit longer. They hold up, I believe this one and that one over there hold up, I'm gonna say the hood cable, but it might be the fuel line. I'm not sure, I don't remember. These are the bolts that held on the valance. One thing to note, 2 of them were longer. I'm not exactly sure where they go, but I'll worry about that when it's time to put the valance back on. So, the lesson I learned from the valance bolts, the longer bolts that hold on the fender are numbers 2, 5, and 7 if you count from the front. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 are going to be the longer bolts. So if you want to watch me take them out, I'm just using my little impact driver here. Long one. Number 6. There you go. And just to keep life interesting, there's 2 7/16 bolts right inside the fender here. Okay, I think I have all the bolts out. I've never taken a fender off an MG before, so I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen here. But let's see. There's our fender. Ew. And here's what it looks like without the fender. Here's our fender laying on the floor, and it doesn't look too bad until you get down to this part. And as you can see, there's just a whole bunch of fender that's not there. So as we look at where the fender was, you can see we got some rust there, a little bit here. I don't see any holes. It looks pretty good in here. And coming up the other side, it looks pretty good. We can see those holes where the fender was right there. And then let's get down on the ground and look underneath. So with the fender out of the way, we're looking here at what I guess is like the rocker inner fender thing. And this, as we can see, I'll put the light down. You can see there's a big hole here. And this metal is not metal anymore. And there's another hole. So this section's gonna have to be addressed. As we look forward here, we can see that there is a hole here. And hello, I don't think that hole is supposed to be there. This is the rubber seal. This is going to have to be replaced, obviously, as we look down the way here. These are the bolts that I almost took off, but I didn't. I just got done using a wire brush on these bolts here. And on the other side, in this area here, I wire brushed these off. Now I think I'll spray them with some penetrating oil. Give them a little shot. I think I'm gonna go have a sandwich. We've got the right fender unbolted. Let's try to lift it off of here. And there we go. Well, first, let's take a look at the inside of the fender. You can see it's surface rust, but it's rusty nonetheless. If you just painted the outside of this car, it looked nice from the outside, and this would all be in there. Here's the bottom. This down here, you can see there's holes in it, and it needs to be replaced. As we look at the car inside the fender, we can see also that it's rusty here, just like on the other side. And rusty, but no holes in it. So that's a good thing. Coming all the way down here, etc., etc. There's a nice spider web. Of course, this rubber will replace it. Now, this is something that I saw on the other side. The top here is full of mud. Look at. And that mud holds moisture, and the moisture eats holes in the metal. So just like on the other side, this top is going to have to be cut out and replaced. This is what came off the car when that fender came off. This part over here looks like dirt. This part over here, this looks like it used to be MG metal. So as I was sweeping up the MG, I came across what appears to be the remnants of a peanut tucked away inside the fender. Now this is evidence to me that when I pulled this MG out of the woods, I probably left a family of squirrels homeless. With the fender out of the way, we can see that the bottom of this panel is also gone. Where are we looking again? This is the bottom of the fender in front of the rocker panel. And if we look closer at this, you can see that it's just toast. We're gonna have to replace it or do something. You know, this is one of those cars that looked good on paper, but probably would have looked better on fire. Well, I spent about the last 6.5 hours working on this bucket. What did I accomplish? Let's review. I took off these splash guards. I removed the drip tube from the heater box. That was fun. I spent a lot of time chiseling off this pink putty stuff. I spent a lot of time cutting off rusty sheet metal. I spent a lot of time breaking off these little screws in the engine compartment. And then I even spent more time trying to get the broken pieces out of the hole. I pried these rusty rivets off of this splash panel to get this lovely rubber loose. I managed to get the rubber starter cover off in one piece. I also had loads of fun drilling out all the pop rivets that held on the chrome strip and the rivets that held on the little rubber seal around the window. Not to mention drilling out the rivets that held the snaps that hold the rubber floor mats in place. I also touched a few spots with the grinder to see how much rust there is to take off, while asking myself over and over again, what did I do to my life? And somewhere along the way, I made an interesting discovery. I think now I know why the front part of my rocker panel, along with the bottom of my front fender, rotted away, but not this part of the rocker panel. First, let me put this back on the car. Then the fender. I know what you're saying. The old guy's lost his noodle. Let me explain. Now what I did is I used this vice grip to take the place of the bolts that go here. Moving inside the fender, you can see this space between the splash panel and the fender. That space is supposed to be covered by this lovely piece of rubber. Look at the space in here. That space is going to allow all the dirt and water to go in here, run down the inside of the fender, and rest in here between the rocker panel and the fender. That moisture and dirt in there has no way to get out. So that water sat between this part of the rocker panel and the bottom of the front fender. It just filled up with water and sat there and rusted the rocker panel and rusted the front fender from the inside out. The moral of this story, make sure you have a good seal between your splash panel and your fender. All that being said, one has to ask oneself, well, Bob, what did you learn from all of this? I learned I gotta have somebody else do this. I don't have the time to sit here and grind and sand and scrape all the gook off of this car. I have to find some place to take it where it's gonna get sandblasted and primed. Let them bring it back to me. I'll weld the patches in and then send it off to paint. Why am I dressed like this? Because it's the middle of February. I just got back from the sandblasting place. I had the hood, the trunk, and the two fenders, actually they were glass beaded. So let's see how they came out. Here's the hood. If we take a closer look, we can see that this hood's gonna need a little bit of work. I mean, if you look at it, this thing looks like the rolling hills of Wisconsin. Here's the trunk. Believe me, this is the heaviest piece. There's the trunk. It goes in the back of the car. As we look at the trunk, it's hard to tell on this video, but the trunk is really straight. The only issue I have is, I don't know if you can even see it, there's a scratch right here in the primer from the ride home, but the trunk is generally in really excellent condition. Okay, now we got the fenders. Here is a fender. If you remember what they looked like when we took them off, there is no rust on the insides at all. Of course, there's a really big hole in the bottom. The left front fender, again, it's pretty good. There's a couple of spots, you know, right here. There's a crease right here. And then, of course, as we go down on the fenders, we can see that there's like just a really big gaping hole. Another part I brought him is this front valance. And as we go down the front of it, I don't know if you can see, but it needs a lot of work. Not rusty though. And finally, here's the other fender. I know this is the other fender because it goes on the other side. Here's the right front fender. The right front fender has this little boo-boo here. We're gonna have to get after that with a hammer and a dolly and see if we can get it straight, and have to use some body filler in it, I guess. And also, the right front fender has a huge hole in it, but I have a solution. My solution was purchasing the bottom of the fender from Moss Motors. And close that door. You can see where the rust is. This is plenty of room to take care of that problem. So instead of dealing with this hole, we're just going to replace it with these wonderful panels. That's my plan today. If you want to see what's going to happen with the restoration of our 1964 MGB, subscribe and follow along on Robert's British Cars. I don't know what we're going to be doing next time, but I'll see you then.